Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. I want to finally tell you about two things I've been doing lately that I haven't talked about yet because I wanted to give it a month and see, you know, is it something that's going to stay? It's actually been like 6 or 7 weeks now, but two things, two little thoughts. The first one is writing. Last year, in the month of February or maybe late January, I had an idea to try to write a story a week. I wanted to learn how to tell a story, meaning that there was some sort of character development that was tied to some sort of plot and that told a cohesive thing. And I wanted to try to write one a week. Didn't matter how long it was. It could be 1,000 words. It could be 10,000 words. Whatever I could get done in a week. And I did that. I did it for 5 weeks, and I wrote 5 stories. They were all horrific, and I deleted them all. I treated it like Tibetan sand art. Just they weren't intended for anybody else to read. They were just, I'm going to attempt to write a story and see what happens. And then I went on the cruise last year. And prior to that, I had an idea that I thought was bigger than a 1 week story that I wanted to kind of try to think about writing. That idea is still up here. I think I wrote the first chapter. And there's still a few more pieces to put together. I have a pretty decent outline for that story, actually. It just needs to happen. So this year, I decided to do the same thing starting January 1, the first week of January. I'm going to try to write. The difference was I wasn't trying to write a story per se, a story a week. I decided to focus on just writing some amount every day, whether it's a half hour, an hour, whatever my motivation was for that story. But I needed to write at least something every single day, every single weekday, same as this show. Gave myself weekends off, and that went okay for a while, and I haven't written anything since this Coral in the Canyon that I shared a couple weeks ago. I haven't written anything since then, and that was just I enjoyed the experience. For this particular set of things that I wrote, it was mostly my life stories. It started off kind of being a bit snarky and sarcastic, and it turned into being more of just like woe is me type stuff, like the same kind of stuff that same stories I've told over and over throughout my life about how the difficulties and the challenges I've faced, and that's just it wasn't as fun to write about, and I found that some of those stories, some of the stuff that I wrote during those 4 weeks or whatever I actually did it, it dug up a lot. A lot of things happened. From that 4 week exercise, I think I have like 5 complete things, a couple of things that I stopped working on because they were just too much. And yeah, so I think I have 5 complete thoughts. I would say like most of them are just a couple of pages. Maybe one of them is 3 or 4 pages. Some of them are 1 page, just small little things. And I enjoyed the experience. Again, for me this time it was not necessarily worrying about a narrative structure as it was just writing, right? It was just like, let's try a different voice. And so this was more of a personal voice. This wasn't me making up a fantasy character or making up a landscape. It was me telling stories about my life. And it went okay. But I don't know why I stopped. I don't really have a good reason. The other thing so the point of all this is I think I still want to continue to try to write. And I will say that I found that more personal, like nonfiction writing to be more comfortable for me. But everything that I wrote, those 5 completed things need very heavily edited. They need to be restructured. They need to have details filled in. They're a complete mess. But I enjoyed the process more than I did trying to create a fantasy thing. And by fantasy, I don't necessarily mean that the stories that I wrote last year, I don't know that any of those were fantasy. They were fantasy in the sense that I made up the characters, I made up the premises, I made up the stories. I don't necessarily know that any of them had I mean, they all had some sort of fantasy element, whether it was monsters or ghosts or whatever. But uh, this set of stories, I really enjoyed that nonfiction style of writing. It was more enjoyable for me. I don't know that I have anything that I could write nonfiction about that would be entertaining for anybody else. So it started off as trying to be this, like, take this humorous look at my life, and it turned into a diary. It turned into just a journal that I wouldn't want other people to read. An exploration of my own thoughts, kind of thing. And so that being said, the other thing I've been doing since the start of the year is I've been keeping a diary. Um, I found an app called Daylio, Daylio, and it is intended to be like a short form diary. It's intended that you can set up kind of emojis or tags that you can set for specific emotions or goals or whatever. And so you can write a one sentence post and hit some tags, and it'll compile that into some sort of a weekly report if you want to look at it. I actually haven't looked back at any of it yet. It's just been something that when I pick my phone up and I find myself doing something like clicking on Instagram just because, instead I'll click on Daylio and just write something. Like, even if it's just a sentence, even if it's two sentences, just what I'm feeling right now, how I'm doing right now, how's work going, how's my relationship with them, how's my relationship with my kids, how's my relationship with my parents, is there anything important happening in my life? And I try to just take little notes throughout the day. And what I found in the beginning of doing this was that was very easy. And I was posting probably when I started, let's go back. Oh my. When I first started, this says I started on January 4th. There was 5 entries for January 4th. There's 6 entries for January 5th. 4 entries, 5 entries, 3 entries, 2 entries. I found myself taking notes throughout the day about little things here and there, things I needed to remember, kind of the same way that I used to use like physical notebooks. I used to carry around, this might even have like notes like that in it. No, this is just a shop one. This has just got shop stuff in it. But I used to carry around physical notebooks and just write things that I needed to store somehow. And I was using this like that. What I have found since probably the last week or two has been that I don't think about it at all anymore, and I don't use it until I set a reminder at 9:30 at night to write something. And so the last, I don't know how many entries in here, I've barely been able to keep up with it. I just one a day kind of thing. And so it just kind of became more of a chore than anything. I'm still doing it, and I'm still going to keep doing it because I think it is valuable. I used to keep a daily journal. I used to have books full of stuff that I wrote about my life. But what I found at that time was, or those times, I never really kept up with it like all the time. It was more or less, I would write my journal when I was feeling particularly good or particularly bad. But when I was feeling middle of the road, I didn't have anything to say. So I'm going to do this daily regardless. I have been tracking some things in there. So one of the other things I've been doing, maybe we've talked about it, is back exercises. I started doing those last year, and then when I got sick at Thanksgiving, they just kind of stopped, and I didn't do them for the entire month of December. I've been waking up and doing back exercises every morning again. Core exercises I do, like, abdominal exercises and back exercises. I've been tracking that in here. I have some eating habits that I'm tracking in here just to keep track of how many times I eat out, how many times I eat off schedule, because I've been doing the intermittent fasting now for 3 or 4 years. So I think it's a useful tool. For some reason, the importance of it just has slowly dwindled, and I just don't think about it. And then I get that reminder, and it's like, oh yeah, I didn't write anything today. I should probably write something. I don't know what causes that. But those are 2 things, I guess maybe 3 things if you count the exercises that I've been doing more of since the start of the year. I guess there is a 4th thing. I didn't bring it with me. I should have brought it with me to emphasize it. I have been using physical notes more, like handwritten. I've been carrying around a composition book to take physical notes, especially for, like we talked yesterday, the problem that I was having yesterday. I have pages in that notebook of me trying to figure that problem out. Taking notes. You saw me probably at the beginning of the month, or maybe even last month, I was bringing it down here because I had written down thoughts, like, oh, here's what I want to talk about. So I have been doing that again, like I used to, except now it's a bigger book, and that's been enjoyable. But you know, I would say if you're interested in doing micro journaling, check out Dailyo. I think it's a good app. The free version does everything I need it to do. I haven't found a need to. It has a subscription model, which I don't know why I would pay for a daily journal. To pay with the free version, you can only have one goal. So it reminds you every day, do this thing. If you try to set up multiple goals, you have to have a pay thing. If you want more emojis, you have to pay for it. There's a subset that you get for free. Like I don't need any of that. I really just wanted to take notes. The extra stuff, what I have found is, like, for instance, the eating out. I found that was too much of a chore. Like, it was becoming a chore to be like, I have to go in here and log this thing that I did. And I'm not using the data for anything. I haven't looked back at it at all. It gives me like a reminder, hey, here's a weekly report. I've never looked at it. But I think it's a useful tool, and I'm going to keep doing it. So there you go. I've been waiting to talk about these two things just because I wanted to give them a fair shake. And one has stuck at least. At least it's stuck enough that the notification daily annoys me into writing something. The writing has not stuck, and it's a real shame. I hope to figure out someday what I want to write about. I haven't figured that out yet, and I think that was the goal this year, was to try to find a voice that I feel comfortable writing, whether it's my own personal voice or whether it's a character or whether it's maybe it's just technical, and I write technical stuff. I don't know, but I do want to find an outlet, and I haven't found it yet. Other than work and Component Studio. What do you got going on this weekend? I think we're going to maybe have a little date night. Em and I are alone tonight, and so we're going to have a little date night, like a post-celebration of our birthdays, and maybe play some video games. And then I think I might go buy a new tool this weekend. An old tool off of somebody on Facebook. And I think we're going to help her brother a little bit. So what do you got going on? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is pragmatism. It's a noun meaning the belief that one's actions should be guided primarily based on knowledge or opinion of what is likely to work best in a given situation. The imperative to always do what is practical and effective. Our families have succeeded in amassing great wealth over many generations because we are all, at heart, practitioners of pragmatism. Pragmatism, Pragmatism. I would say I am moderately pragmatic. Does that just make me normal?